You're good? Okay.
Hey, everybody.
Hey.
So I've got just a few minutes to do this, but there's something that I want to say before I give the bullet points of my testimony. You know, the disciples were talking with Jesus in John 11, and Jesus is saying that we're going to go to where Lazarus is because he sleeps, and they're thinking that he's asleep. And Jesus says, no, he's dead, and I'm glad that he's dead. And then he says, for your sake.
Yep.
You see, in that moment, up to that point, they only knew him as healer.
Yep.
And because of the situation that was going on, the circumstance that would have happened, an opportunity for revelation was there to bring forth. Very soon they were going to know him as Resurrector. When I heard that, when I did the study on that for the very first time, he was speaking to me. My folks got a divorce when I was about 3 years old, a little bit younger. I saw my dad every other weekend. It was me and my mom. She's a great mom. My dad was a great dad too, but I was really around my mom and my sisters more than any. One of the things that was going on in me at a very young age is that I had this heart that was 3 times the size of my body. I was bigger than every other kid everywhere I went. I went to 14 different schools, and I was always the tallest kid in school. And every place I went, I had to recreate myself. So I had this heart inside of me, inside of this big body that I had to hide, that I had to keep away. Because I felt like that every time I showed emotion, that it was going to cause me to have to defend myself. And I had enough reasons to defend myself, I didn't need another one. It turned me into a bully at a later age. It turned me into a guy that was bigger than everybody else, that could use his size and his intimidation and his intellect to get what he wanted whenever he wanted it. When I was about 3 years old, my mom was a cocktail waitress for a very large country club in town. And whatever the reason was, she chose to leave me to be babysitted by the landlord, which lived next door to us, his son. And he molested me. And it was very confusing to me because in the moment as a 3-year-old kid, I thought it was play. And I was having fun playing with somebody, but it was a different kind of play that I ever saw. But it never got off my mind, even at 3 years old and at 4 years old and at 5 years old, I thought about it. When I was about 10 years old, my mom again, she had to go do some things. And so I remember we were in a laundromat down the street, and there was a bulletin board and there was a card on there that said, babysitter. So she got a hold of this young lady and she came over and she babysitted me, and 2 times that she babysitted me, she molested me. I was more mature, I was more physically advanced than most kids my age, and she took advantage of that. The thing about that is that it turned on a sexual appetite inside of me at a very young age that I should have never had. I should have never even known at that time. It started me on a path of my only thing that would make me feel better was to have sex of some sort. When I got older, when I was in high school, I did everything I possibly could to have as much sex as I possibly could. Later on, it was like that through my 20s. I was traveling with professional skateboarders and stuff, and there was an entourage of girls around us, and there was no lack for any of that stuff. And here's the worst part of it. My dad made sure that even at a young age that I knew about Jesus. My dad had one sermon: Jesus is your best friend. And I knew that. And so my whole entire life, I walked with him, I talked with him on all that stuff, even when I was rebelling. So fast forward through all of this. 29, my little girl came. And as soon as the nurse cleaned her off and brought her over, they brought her to me and laid her on my chest. I was leaning back in a chair. My mom got a picture of it. The very first thing she did was pick up her head and look me right in the face. and opened her eyes, moments old. And I swore right there that I would never let her be subjected to the things that I was subjected to. So as the years went by, pretty soon I got wrecked on a Sunday, on an Easter service. My dad invited me back to church to bring my family. I had 3 kids at the time. And I just had an encounter with the Holy Spirit. In a church that never saw that kind of stuff, I'm flat on the floor wailing because the Holy Spirit came to me. And I felt this forgiveness inside of me. God didn't want any of that stuff for me. Did he want it? No. Can he use it? Yeah. Wasn't a few years after that I got invited, and here's the last part of it. I got invited to be part of a men's organization that was secular. At that time, I finally realized that this heart that I had been hiding all my life was there for a reason. At 3 o'clock in the morning, the Lord spoke to me. First time I ever heard his audible voice. And it was right after I realized what this heart was for. He said, you have no idea what's coming. You need to get ready. In my mind, I thought it was some little simple event that was coming. I didn't realize it was going to be a life of ministry. So what he had me go through, this heart that he gave me in the midst of all of those traumatic events, was for his good. There was a circumstance that took place that he didn't want for me, but he could use it. And because he could use it, revelation came forth. And what he did is he trained me through that, through the forgiveness that I was able to give, on how to see inside men's hearts. I'm 6'5". I'm 280 pounds. I've done extreme sports. I've rode rodeo. I've played sports. I've done martial arts. I mean, boxing, everything you could possibly think of. I guarantee you my masculinity's in place. But my heart is where I fight my battles, on my knees, with him by my side. And the last thing I want to ever see on a man is a hardened heart. And man, there's a lot of them. And one more thing. Between my wife and I, we have nine kids. We have 2 girls, and we have 2 granddaughters that are girls, 2 grandsons. And the one thing that I think about constantly is that I want to make sure that the standard that those girls have in their life is a man that loves Jesus, and that he's able to have a heart that is willing to expose himself to his bride, to his girl, to his children. Because those things that I hide, repress, and deny are those triggers that Anita was talking about. It's like an open door on my back that the enemy can reach in and pull those triggers, manipulate me to come out sideways and to show up in a way that God never intended me to be. How I get set free from those triggers is that forgiveness. It's pressing into him, listening to his word, and exposing the deepest parts of my life, first and foremost to him, second to my bride, and third, allowing my children to see who I am on the inside that God created so